Welcome to Keen on Green with Evan Rigsby, the podcast that dives deep into the world of environmental consulting from a multitude of perspectives.
Hey everybody, it's Evan Rigsby over at Rigsby Search Group, and today we have a very exciting episode. Today I'm bringing on my good friend Ashley Sullivan, who is president and principal engineer over at OTO. I will let her talk about her story in a sec, a little bit about the company, but I am so excited to have her on board today, sharing her insights about, the industry as a whole, how she came to where she is today. Ashley carries a background of over 20 years in civil engineering, geotechnical, engineering, environmental projects, and in 2020 was nominated president of OTO. The question I should be asking is, what is Ashley not doing? And so forth. Winning multiple awards and really bringing OTO into the next generation of growth. It's such an exciting time for the company with her leadership and what they have in store, especially with the values that they carry as a company. Without further ado, Ashley, thanks so much for coming on board today, and we are pumped to be talking with you.
Evan, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I never really get to sit back and kind of hear all that. Often people ask me, how do I do everything I do? And I say, just like everybody else, it's day by day, looking for the small opportunities and always trying to say, how can I be helpful? So that's my little secret, that it is no secret, and that there is amazing people that I work with every day that have helped me get to where I am today.
Oh, absolutely. So, for people listening for the first time, your career story has been, something that, in my opinion, a lot of people envy, from, starting all the way, at the bottom, building your way up into a leadership position. Can you talk a little bit about that? And, from where you are today leading OTO, kind of where your footing started in the industry. What did you get involved with? What sort of projects? Can you start at the beginning for us?
Sure. So going way back when, thinking about, sort of always knew I wanted to be an engineer before I even knew what engineering was. No idea what engineers do. In the graduated high school, 1994, it was the buzzword was the environment, right? So I thought, this sounds like a fun thing to do. Went to college for engineering, fell in love with civil engineering, wanted to, do a little something with the environment. And one summer job, I think my junior to my senior year, then continued in my senior year, I worked in a grad lab. And that grad lab, which then funded my my master's program, was a Mass DOT project at UMass Amherst under Dr. Ostendorf, and so glamorous, but it was the fate and transport of rock salt or rock salt alternative. And what we did is, that's where I really got my foot in the ground of like doing geotechnical and environmental drilling, going out on a drill rig, installing wells, groundwater sampling. I can't even tell you how many times how many wells I sampled over the course, but it paid for my grad school. Then we would take the data, we would actually analyze it in our lab. We had ICs and A's, and so I got to know how actually taking a groundwater sample or a soil sample and how we get the chemical concentration, plugging that data in, and then using it for groundwater modeling. So early on, I was working with the grad students, and later on, I got my master's doing that. So that really paved the way for when I started looking for a job without even knowing it. Look at OTO. And the funny story here was, I was looking for interview experience. I never thought I would stay in Springfield. I was living downtown Springfield at the time. Was looking for a job back east. I'm from the eastern part of the state. And I said, I need some interview experience. Walked in the door, wonderful little company. At the time was only 6 years old. And I just thought this would be a great place to, be here just a couple years, start my career. So it translated really well, because as part of the site characterization, learn, putting a lot of wells in the field, doing some borings. At the time, I was mostly doing environmental work. OTO was mostly an environmental compliant consulting company at the time. Mike Talbot had some geotech training. He was trained as a geotech, and he started bringing a little bit more that back over the years. And I really fell more into the geotechnical role. But obviously they are coupled, always have my environmental hat on as well. And we grew that practice over the years. So what I thought was just going to be a little bit 2-year stop or 3-year to start my career at O'Reilly Talbot and Ogun, ended up still here. It has changed. It's, grown. Our services have expanded. Obviously companies change over time, but really now it wasn't the plan. So what I'd say is you never really know the plan, but you're always looking for, is this working for me at this time, or what can I do? And I do believe this is what can I do to steer the direction, even maybe at 5 years in and you're a project manager. I really wanted to grow the geotech. So I said, hey, Mike, let's hire more people. Let's do that. And we did. We grew that to basically being kind of an equal sector to the environmental as in size. So my next step, if I want to continue the story, was, okay, I'm here now. I'm ready to start a family. And I wanted to go part-time. I wanted some flexibility. Being at a small company, they were fantastic about that. And there was not a lot of companies that were kind of supporting that sort of role at the time. I still wanted to advance. Right. I still wanted to be a project manager. I wanted to be able to rearrange my schedule and be flexible. And for anybody doing that, it's not easy. It's not easy to be part-time and you still have to communicate, over-communicate, rearrange your schedule, be available at times. So it's not necessarily easy, but I knew it could work. And here, management supported me. I mean, Mike Talbot was, supported me that whole way, allowed that to happen. I would have at times recruiters reach out and I'm like, well, maybe I can, go somewhere else. And that was always my first thing. I want a part-time role, flexible. And it, doesn't have to be exactly this days. I had a very flexible daycare. I had a lot of help. But as soon as I said that, people said, no, come back when you're 40 hours, and that's one thing that I think in today's environment, you have to be a little more flexible, but that was something that I knew could work better in our industry. That
well, off of that,
we were losing great people.
I think off of that, and not to take away, you had mentioned a while back, like you very early on, got some fantastic mentorship, and, but also it sounded like the flexibility you're talking about there, but also like with additions to the company where you had an idea, well, let's grow this, let's build this. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, you don't hear that at a lot of companies, or you see a lot of people think very narrow-minded, whatever department they're in. I mean, just to go back to that, I mean, a lot of people don't necessarily have that. What was that like? Just to dive a little deeper on that, with, almost like that self-starter gene, even you weren't the owner at the time, but, you had that ability to add value to the company.
I goes back to what I said at the beginning. I think some of it is just personality type, but I think anybody can do it. If you can look at a situation and say, what could I do better? Or how could I help here? Or what do I want this to look at? And instead of waiting for somebody else to come up with an idea, if you start it, if you just even start the discussion, it's amazing what that can spark in other people either supporting you or saying, oh yeah, let's do this. I mean, one of the things that was said to me, for better or worse here was, sure, you can, let's hire somebody, but you better keep them busy, it wasn't in consulting. It's true. Right. So that was giving me a dose of reality back of like, if you want to grow this, but that's a responsibility. Right. And I did. And I think maybe somewhat being in a small company or at least a tight group, we could have those conversations. Over time, I did understand how the business worked. And that's one thing I bring to my leadership is I want people early on to understand how companies work, how consulting works, how cash comes in and cash comes out, and what are the things we're looking at? How do we pay salaries? All that stuff. I was getting that a little bit, not even realizing it along the way, and along with the responsibility. So when I had an idea, there was a broader discussion, but you can't get there without either somebody being open to your ideas or taking a little bit of the responsibility yourself. I can't just say, oh, I want to, this would be great if this company does this.
Right. And off of that, it's like almost from a full circle moment, now being, head of the company right now, for especially your younger staff or even middle management, people who are rising through the ranks, how have you translated that with this new wave for OTO and, where you want to grow it? I'm sure you've definitely passed those traits on. What's that like?
So really, I say, and this was when I became president in 2020, I knew one of my biggest job here was to recruit people, to hire people, to find the best people we really could that wanted to be part of a bigger picture. And if I did that, then all the other things take care of themselves, right? The clients get taken care of, the projects get taken care of, and all that. So I kind of thought to myself of what were the things that helped me take on that responsibility. I think it was having the big picture mentorship, seeing how everything worked, not just being given one small task and saying, okay, do that and bring that back to me. But hey, what is the intent of this task? Why is this client different from this client? And to take time for those conversations, in the car rides where you get to talk to people and really just get them early on to see a bigger picture. Because I think that sparks curiosity, that sparks ownership. And then people can see themselves in your role, right? They start, if you bring them along to client meetings, and that was something that I was always part of from the day I started, was I got brought along into a lot of client meetings, went to a lot of sites where I never said a word. I just took notes. But you realize, doing it that way, I learned a lot. I saw a lot, was introduced to a lot of people, and I was pretty shy. I mean, I was terrified. My first construction site visit, Basketball Hall of Fame, will never forget. I almost quit my second day here. I had no clue what I was doing. I was sent there by myself. Luckily, made it through the next day, and now construction sites are still my favorite place to have be. But it's to really to support the people and say, hey, it's okay. This sometimes can be a little nerve wracking, but come with me. Let's do it together first, or you've got this. And hey, what do you think? What do you think we can do better? So it's definitely reflecting on how I learned and giving the people like the confidence, giving everyone here confidence that they'll continue to grow, ask questions, and they'll develop, and that they can see themselves really taking ownership and doing amazing.
Well, I love that because, like I've talked with folks at larger firms and everybody has their preferences, but I agree with you. I think you have a much better pulse of the company when, for example, someone that's one of your staff, they have direct access to you. They can learn from you. They can talk with you. They can whatever, you're right there and, and all that. So I'm going to ask you a question that some viewers gave me right before we jumped on here. And there were some people that looked up, the company, the website, and, a common question that people were wondering about. Can you talk a little bit about, I know you guys are a WBE, but also really from a social impact, a lot of the industry's history, has obviously been very male dominated. And I think we're seeing such a big change, especially from diversity, inclusivity. it's a really important time in our industry. Can you comment on that a little bit?
Sure. So, as I went into engineering, there wasn't, there were some females. There wasn't a lot. It was often, one of just a handful, maybe 2 or 3 out of 80 students at UMass in civil engineering or something like that in my class. And then to go into geotech engineering, I'll tell you, I used to go to so many of the conferences, and I would be the only woman. Maybe there'd be one other one. A lot of times I was also 20 years younger everywhere else. I tell, I didn't know any better. I do tell stories of where I've gone to training and nobody would sit with me. And being now, I'll go sit anywhere. But at the time, I didn't know where I should fit in, right? And that's something you don't see as much, and I don't want anybody to ever experience, where they have nobody to have lunch with, or they have nobody to sit in, and it's seemingly people are just avoiding sitting at your table. That was, early on. So let's say I almost didn't know better until I did. So in this field, really found some amazing people to help me out, whether it was on construction sites um, or here in the consulting, where, you know, like I said, I didn't really notice too much the gender thing until I was looking for a mentor. And it was really hard. And honestly, I did reach out to some, women in the industry, and I would get nothing back. Now, I do realize now they were doing their best. They're trying to lean into, a male dominated field as well, and everything. So now I can see it all, but I really was looking for somebody that I could look up to, or there would be comments of, well, you're busy having a family now, or you're busy with this, and that really would just irk me, because the men here or anywhere else, I'm like, well, they've got families too, and they're putting their kids on the bus at times, and they've got to leave, but it's just, that was a little frustrating. On the other side, there were some truly heroes that never treated me any differently, or would actually, there were times where I would have my children in the car with me, but I would have to go do a site visit. And of course, it would be a site visit that I knew I could take them. I would take them to a nearby park and go look at the site really quick. But for the most part, I would kind of keep it secret that, I had my kids there. And there were a few people that would realize that, and they would say, bring your kids here. I'll come meet you on the other side of the construction fence. Like, I'll do this and I'll do that. And that was not typical. So to those, they really kept me going. They really were like, no, people do get this. People do treat me the same. And it's not that big of a deal. I'll say it wasn't until I got more into management and I became more equals that I actually had a harder time with, with either trying to fit in or being accepted, or little things here and there. Luckily, by that time, I had the confidence and I could recognize what was just ridiculous, and I call it as such. And it also made me very aware of, for instance, in meetings, to encourage, the diverse opinions, encourage women to speak up, and, it just made me more aware that I wasn't aware when I was younger. So sometimes you're not even aware of maybe how things are a little different for yourself until you can look back at it, and you do see how you want to help change the industry. So I'd say it's really, I think there's so many people now that people can see themselves in certain roles and can reach out and ask for help, or which is amazing. Even I go to construction sites, there's so many more females out there, and really, I found it was pre-COVID, post-COVID. I don't know what happened, but I felt like there was just this change seemed rapid to me, and it probably wasn't, but it really felt that way, that in 5 years, we really started to see more people in management roles. I think there was a lot of retirements. I think there was, a lot of people coming out of college and out of, schools, and just really seeing now a closer to a 50-50 at times, which is just, is awesome.
I love that. Amazing. So off of that, and especially coming out of COVID and all that, we're starting to see conferences pick up again, but not only conferences, networking events, like and I've had people even reach out to me where they're like, Evan, I may be nervous about putting my name out there, talking with strangers, because it's a big thing for a lot of people, especially people starting out their careers. And that was a big thing that I hear repeatedly from you is, chasing people who are going to help you get to that next level, talking with people who maybe you'll mentor or learn or so forth. I just got the sense that was a big thing for you. I mean, any comments on that?
Sure. So I mentioned before I was pretty shy. Plus, I was in a male-dominated field where everybody seemed to have so much more experience than me. So it was hard. It was hard to go out and network and find my way. And being in, we're headquartered in Springfield, Mass. So there was a lot of events were in Boston. I was one of the only younger engineers here at the time. So I didn't have a lot of like peers I could say, hey, let's go together. And that was really, when I look back, that kind of, I don't want to say set me back, because obviously I'm here, but I wanted a different experience for other people at OTO or in our industry that didn't have that. So a couple things here at OTO, I'm big on not just the technical training, but we do a lot of the soft skill. I'm gonna call them soft skills. They're hard skills, and we need help focusing on them, training. And we do that with a company called Boulder Company, and I stumbled upon them. And again, there's somebody I say, hey, they helped me and helped OTO get to where we are. But what they do is they do a lot of, it's kind of like the emotional intelligence. It's about speaking. It's about confidence, about getting out of our own head. It's team building. It's a whole bunch of things. But I try to do something with them once a year, and it makes a difference. And what I look back is, what would I have liked to have had for me? And a lot of it is that sort of training, little tips, little tools, little, confidence builders that say, you've got this. You can be yourself, you can be authentic, and you can go speak to, someone. So my advice is, and you can seek those out on your own. There's a lot of little things. So, for somebody, seek that out on your own. There's a lot of training. I also did training COVID with Patrick Ledden. So it's the Ledden Group. Stumbled upon him online. He's wonderful. I think they're out of, he was working at Vanderbilt. He's out of Tennessee. Again, okay. COVID, what else are we doing? I did this leadership program online. Actually got to talk one-on-one as he was building his company. And it's things like that. Just finding these random people that can help you and you can form a relationship with. And he was interested. I would give him feedback on his leadership program. And in turn, I was learning who I was as a leader, and I was learning how to interact with people that probably previously I would be like, this guy, he doesn't want to talk to me. He's running a business down in, in Tennessee. And you realize that you can help somebody, they can help you. So I think it's practice in that. And if you can get it through an organization, whether it's some of the, the industry organizations sometimes will help you, your own company that you're at, or doing it on your own. Look for those little trainings that help it not be so scary to get out there and talk to people.
And it definitely sounds, I've always been a believer, one, if you want something, you got to go and get it. You got to go and fight for it. But also, you got to stand out. And like you're talking about with those skills. So kind of transitioning off of that, for people who don't know OTO, I mean, how do you guys do things differently than a lot of the other consulting firms out there? what separates, you guys apart with some of the projects you work in? A big thing listening to you is the way you treat your clients. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think an easy way that sets us apart, there's a few different things. One is with all those soft skills, all those things, really what I'm getting at is being able to communicate, both by, listening to what your clients' needs are, because they are all a little different, and building the relationships, building trust internally with each other, with our clients, with our peers, with our vendors, with everybody. But it's learning how to communicate. What can we do for you? How can we do it? One of our vision is not just for OTO, but it's to elevate the industry. I think everybody here believes in our industry. So it's not so much we've tried to strip away the competitiveness of trying to win this job, or we're better than this company or this. It's like, no, we believe in our services. We believe in what we do, and we believe what our competitors do. That has allowed us to team. So when we're small and we need to team with somebody, maybe we have overlapping services, but we try to communicate, hey, we can help you with this. You can help us. Sometimes that's with the WBE. Sometimes that's just because we have available field staff, or we might have available something else. But to also, to believe in elevating kind of the industry. And that is something that I drive home here, that we don't need to, cut down other competitors. We don't need to do any of that, but we really want to focus on our projects, our clients' needs, in really the environment in our community. So that's something people hear a lot of, and I believe everybody believes it too. So we have that. I think being a smaller company, sometimes it's a little easier to, we don't have so many set procedures. Obviously we have some, but there's a little leeway in the way we can approach things, or be available for or pick and choose our clients a little bit. When I'm talking to potentially a new hire, we'll talk about, like, what kind of projects do you like? What kind of, what things excite you? What can you work on? And there's a little more leeway in a small company to be able to do that. So I think that sets us a little separate from maybe some others. And I mean, really, I feel like it's our people, it's our culture and our values, trying to be on the forefront of, having that diversity, being on the forefront of allowing flexibility. And I will tell you, it's straight away it's both men and women, and that want flexibility and want, some support as they're raising families or caring for elders or whatever it is. So trying to be on the front edge of that, because that was something that has always, from, definitely pandemic helped me along, but 20 years ago I said, we can do better. We can do better at this. So really trying to be ahead of the game there, to push the industry, saying, we can work with some of these constraints. And we talk about having people flexibility. We have a lot of people in the office. A lot of the people like to come in our office. So people think that with having flexibility, that it means all remote work. And I'm a fan of having the flexibility for remote work, but I'm also a fan of having people build relationships here internally, or having those friction points where I run into somebody and ask about their day, or, oh, what about this project? Oh, hey, can you help me with this? It's been, for us, it sets us a little apart. People like to be here. Again, everybody's not here every day, all day, but you'll see there's some days where they'll be like, it's really full. It's full. People like to run into each other and enjoy working with each other. So I would say that's what I think sets us apart.
Well, I love that. And I think a big thing there's a lot of different types of leadership, and you see a lot of the old school where you see a lot of leaders who are like micromanagers, need to be involved in every project. I think one thing that's special, that's really separated, OTO apart in our relationship, is like, you give, your people a lot of autonomy to run with something, to own it, and I agree with you. There's that fine line in our industry between healthy competition and almost like a zero-sum game,
Right.
and, and stuff. So one of my last questions for you is, with the future and, with you taking the company to that next level, how do you kind of navigate, the changes we're seeing in our industry with different legislation, even stuff you see in the news like AI, all this stuff going on in the world. How do you see things playing out? Where do you want to have the company focus, in the near future? And, where do you want OTO to be? I'm just curious.
It's such a dynamic time. There's so much going on, and it's hard as a small company to stay on top of it. And what do we need to focus on? And that's where I really turn to organizations and other peers or things to help us. What are you doing? What can you do? And then I scale it back to us. What can we do? I still think our edge, even with AI and figuring out how AI can help us, how can help organize us, prepare some of the products. But I think it's still going to be those that can communicate and interact, interpret specifically to the project and the client needs. And they're not all the same. They're not all the same. So what I will do for a development in downtown, or south end of Springfield may be very different of how I approach a project, say in the Berkshires, or maybe in Central Mass in a more remote location, versus how I would approach a project for a different type of client in Boston. So I think you're still going to need that part. And so to not forget about those skills, not forget about getting out there and meeting people. We have way too many emails. We have way too many. I talk about getting out there, meeting, doing this is fantastic. I think these resources and it's not like I don't like technology. I love the fact that we can do virtual meetings now. I really do. But I also think it's important to still have that part. So for the future of OTO, being small, we can always navigate and figure out, oh, hey, this is a new, like soil management right now. Almost the bane of my existence, but it's so important of finding out where soil can go from a site and get it moved there quickly and think about it and communicate it to the client and all that. But it's, that's something that it's not a very difficult task, but it is a big task. So, it's finding things like that and saying, how can we do it better? And who wants to run with this? Who wants to lead that area in, emerging contaminants? Who wants to learn about that? Hey, let's, like Lori McCarthy, wonderful hire, wonderful partner here, leads the environmental sector, is, she's getting on boards now and things like that, and giving her the leeway of like, go find out about all this stuff and bring it to little old OTO, right? So I still think it's giving people the skills to go figure out and help learn me, bring back to me, and then we can figure out the direction. So, I think the future is, there's so much work to be done with climate change and climate resiliency and sustainability, and redeveloping so many of our historic and urban sites. The new tools and technologies we've had are just, amazing. We're continuing trying to be safe. I think there's so much in this industry, whether you want to be in consulting or in the sales side or construction or, law, everything. So
Right.
I think it's almost too big to think of, Evan. It's like, I don't know where we'll end up. We're going to end up someplace good. I'll tell you that.
I agree with you. So last question for you, a special question here. Floor is all yours, but, anything that you might want to add, that could be, anything about OTO, anything about yourself, anything for, like I said, someone who's just coming into our industry, or even someone who's very seasoned. But, I don't know, maybe a book, maybe a movie, something that helped you. But, and the floor is yours.
I could talk so much about different books. I love books. I love learning from people. I would say some of my favorite books, and then, kind of go into those concepts. But and I should know the authors, but I don't. But there was a book called Stretch, and that's about when you have limited resources, how people get so creative, and almost it's better when you have an abundance of resources. And it's that whole thing of like, I need the exact tool to do this, but you don't really, because when you don't have that tool, you get creative and you learn something else. I try to, stay true to that. Try to be creative and think out of the box. Take a breath, return to a problem. That is, anything by, Marshall Goldsmith and all the leadership things about daily habits that help us and set ourselves up for the opportunity. So we talk about my path to here. Think how I want to leave this conversation is we all know about major decisions, right? We have major decisions, but I really do think it's the small daily routine decisions you don't even really think about all the time that get you on the path that you are at. Sometimes I think getting to this role, like this responsibility sort of landed on me, and we went and, I said, what can I do here? Let's do it. Let's transition. Let's continue the company with some outside help. We all got on the same page with that. But really it was, all those small decisions or learning points or everything I had set myself up for to be ready for that, to be ready to recognize the opportunity when it comes and to grab it and to figure out how you can help it. So I would say set yourselves up. My advice would be set yourselves up in anything. When the opportunity comes towards you, like, don't be afraid of it. Just like, grab it, see what you can do. And and for everybody to know they are capable of so much more than we realize at any time. So I think that's my advice. Go for it.
I couldn't think of a more perfect way. I gotta admit, I'm like amped up right now listening to you.
Let's go do something.
Let's go. Yeah. So, on that note, I mean, seriously, from the bottom of my heart, Ashley, thank you for joining us today and talking about your story, talking about OTO. Fun fact for everyone, I didn't know what plot hounds were until I talked with Ashley.
Yes, there is a plot hound in the office today. Had to bring it and one of my loves, one of my family. And it's sometimes people will say, Evan, like, what do you do? What do you do this? I have to say, I'm, proud mother, 2 wonderful daughters, and a plot hound as well.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But everybody, thank you for listening. What I'm gonna do is you will see on the post for this episode, I will include contact info for Ashley. I will include contact info for OTO. And if you'd like to get in contact with her and the team, please feel free to call or email. I'll make sure to include all of that. But without further ado, thank you again, Ashley. And this is a wrap on episode 3.
Thanks, Evan.